Hey there, welcome to part 2 of this video where we remember Queen Elizabeth II walking around London. Today we are going to walk along Horse Guards through St James's Park, along the Mall to Buckingham Palace, finishing at Green Park to see those floral tributes. I will see you there. We are now leaving the Westminster area and heading up towards Buckingham Palace. Having had a good look around,
Suddenly come in from the side.
sort of how the queue looks. Lots of police, lots of security. Looking well organised. People seem in good spirits. This Westminster Bridge. Now let's head this way. This is the Jubilee Greenway here. Can you see that? And obviously we just celebrated the Platinum Jubilee in the summer of the Queen. Saw somebody somewhere make a comment. She made sure that she made it through to the Platinum. This is the Silver Jubilee Walk here. She made sure she made it to the Platinum. Well done, Liz. There we go, Silver Jubilee Walk. 1977, and here we are just after the Platinum Jubilee, mourning the passing of the Queen and having a look to see how people are marking her death. Lots of ceremonies. We're going to go past St James's Palace if we can, where you would have seen, I was going to call it the Ascension ceremony. Is that what it's called? Where they officially make King Charles king. Accession, not Ascension. Ascension sounds like a bit more heavenly, doesn't it? So the accession ceremony was held on Saturday at St James's Palace. And as I mentioned, the Palace of Whitehall was the biggie, and St James's Palace was actually, these are coaches by the way, with military personnel in them. Quite a few of them about, so they're being moved around. Yes, so the accession ceremony was actually, I think, a day late. I think it's supposed to be the day after. But you know, masses of organisational capacity required. Queen was in Balmoral. Charles and Anne and the youngsters were by her side. I think just the sheer complexity of moving everybody around, and the security and the military mobilisation, etc. Okay, so have some Royal Air Force people here, police here, and as I said, all those there's military barracks up there, and obviously there's coach loads here. I think we're going to let's go past Horse Guards. See a cute little dog over there. Policeman nearly got run over by a cyclist as he tells him you got to walk. Everybody's got to walk. This is one Horse Guards. It is a government building, pretty sure. I don't know who's. Oh, HM Treasury. It tells me handily on the sign outside. HM Treasury. So we're going to head along the Mall, have a quick look at St James's Park, take a view of Buckingham Palace as close as we can, and then we're going to go to Green Park, where we'll finish this part of the walk looking at the floral tributes that people have laid. Here's the Churchill War Rooms. And as I said, somewhere around here in the MOD, Ministry of Defence basement, are the remains of Whitehall Palace. Little bit and Undercroft. Undercrofts are fascinating. Don't really know what an Undercroft is, but they sort of pop up all over the place. Here we have flags at half-mast as we get towards Horse Guards. Helicopter. You know it wouldn't be a chatty walk with Angela without a helicopter overhead, even in these times. Yesterday the procession came up the Mall, past Horse Guards, through the Arch actually. I think went through the Arch to Whitehall and then down to Westminster Houses of Parliament and what have you. I think I wanted to be on that side as well, but I can see it's quite fenced off. So there's the little garden and cottage, specially built. If I just get the right angle through here, there you go. You can see Buckingham Palace, St James's Park, and it was redesigned. I don't know if John Nash or somebody like that redesigned the park to make a more natural looking pond. I think I can see some, is that swans? Yep, the Queen and now the King owns all the unmarked swans. We'll talk about that later. Later, she says, this is a walk about the Queen, and I've yet to talk about her because we're busily looking at what's going on. So let's talk about the Queen some more. Queen Elizabeth, born 1926, not planned on being the Queen. She wasn't properly in line to the throne. And then Edward VIII abdicated. Her father became King George VI, and she became heir presumptive. In January 1952, Princess Elizabeth and the Duke of Edinburgh, who she had married in 1947, set out on a tour to Australia and New Zealand. But en route in February, while in Kenya, the royal couple received the news that her father had died, and she flew back to the UK, Queen Elizabeth. This is the back end of Downing Street. I won't point too much. Don't want to be pummeled to the ground by security, but that was the back end of Downing Street. Even though Queen Elizabeth became Queen immediately, I mean literally as they take their last breath, the next one down takes on the royal title. They couldn't have the coronation for over a year, simply because it was post-war austerity. Wasn't considered that seemly to be splashing out that much. Just give you a view of where we just were and towards the park. We'll duck in the park in a sec, don't worry. So the coronation didn't happen until June 1953. But one of the first properly televised weddings. Forget the figures. Oh no, it's 20 million. Over 20 million people around the world, presumably, maybe not just in the UK, but around the world, watched the wedding, which was televised. And that was one of the things that the Queen achieved in her lifetime, was the sort of putting things on TV. In 1969 they allowed the cameras in and they did a documentary of the royal family, and this sort of more open attitude. Also, the Queen invented the royal walkabout, touring Australia. She sort of decided, or she was advised, maybe it's a good idea, I don't know. Got out the royal transport at a distance from everybody and greeted the crowds. Okay, so this is Horse Guards. In the coverage you'd have seen it at some point if you were watching. It's the London Eye. London Eye's still moving around at the moment. I don't know if people have tickets. The Mall is there. I'm actually going to duck into the park a moment. So St James's Park. I think you're well aware by now, if you're interested, that Queen Elizabeth was the longest ever reigning monarch in the UK. 70 years, 214 days, beating her great-great-grandmother, Queen Victoria, who reigned for 63 years and 7 months and 2 days. The funeral at Westminster Abbey will have over 2,000, I think it's 200, over 2,000 heads of state, royals, dignitaries from Europe and around the world, other key figures will be televised all over the world. Now, it's 20 million for the wedding, quite a lot more millions for Charles and Di's wedding. Wonder how many will tune in for the funeral. I don't know. Let's talk about the Queen as a person. And first thing I'm going to talk about is the Queen and food. Regulars on my channel will know I'm very fond of food. Very, very fond of food. Queen apparently wasn't a foodie, but a woman after my own heart. Loved puddings. Had the extra stomach, I think, that my family prides itself on. Had the biggest meal, can't touch another thing. Along comes pudding. Yes, please, that will do. I've seen accounts that the Queen had a breakfast of Special K. I've also seen it written that she had cornflakes. See some flowers here under the tree. So Special K or cornflakes. But she was also partial to marmalade on toast. So that Paddington scene, that very famous Paddington scene with the Queen, she really does like Paddington. I'm sure she likes Paddington, but she really does like marmalade. So there you go, she was a fan of marmalade on toast. For tea, as in drinking tea, she did like Earl Grey, which is something dedicated helper likes. You do like Earl Grey tea, don't you?
Yes, I do.
It's got a sophisticated palate, has this lad. She had her Earl Grey tea with milk, no sugar. Same as dedicated helper.
Yeah.
Yes. As I said, chocoholic. Loved chocolate mousse, but her favourite of all was something called chocolate perfection pie. I do not know how to make that. I cannot describe it to you. Look it up. Anyway, that was her favourite of all. Chocolate perfection pie. And for tea, she loved a jam sandwich. Preferably with strawberry jam. Always room for dessert. And reputedly, she did love a gin. Respect. And a glass of champagne in the evening. Lovely. Could live that way. Waterfowl of St James's Park, it says on the sign here. It's got a little description of names of what they all are. I know. They're also very tame. Pigeons right under my feet here. When she was in her beloved, that we do not have food for you, pigeons. They've actually all gathered there. Like we didn't. Did somebody put something there for them? Wasn't us. I try not to feed pigeons or any of the ducks. I always think they sort of, bread isn't good for them. Anyway, talking of eating, they must have heard me. Also, when the Queen was in her beloved Balmoral, she did love a good pate, or they are so tame, it's ridiculous, these animals. She did love a pate, salmon, mackerel, that sort of stuff, from the River Dee fishies. What she didn't like, though, and maybe it's partly to do with the fact that she had to host so many people, didn't like garlic or strong onions. But, if you're hosting people left, right and centre, perhaps garlic on your breath is something you don't much fancy. Prince Philip apparently was a foodie. He would try anything. But the Queen, you kind of had to put the recipe past her before she would sort of say, all right, let's give it a go. See, they're clueless, aren't they? They're just living its life in the water. Sweet. We are going to head up to the Mall now. Ooh, I can hear something on a loudspeaker over there. It's probably telling people where they can and can't go. Let's go have a look at the Mall, see where we can and can't go. So clothes. Let's talk about the Queen in clothes. Quite a strong look. I think sometimes she wore what's called block colour, which is the same colour. But bright colours especially. But before we do her clothes, let's start with those bags. I believe they're called, is it Lorna or Launa bags? The Queen was believed to have worn, or to own, sorry, over 200 of these Lorna, Launa, I'm not sure, bags. Right, let's get across here. I think I'm allowed to cross the middle. I can see all sorts of structures going up all over the place, presumably for Monday. Now, being the Queen, you would think you don't necessarily need to carry a handbag because you've got sort of ladies in waiting and all sorts of staff around you. Reputedly, the bag contained a mirror, lipstick, a pen, some mint lozenges and reading glasses. On Sundays, she brought a few small bills precisely folded to give as a church donation. So that was what was supposedly in the Queen's bag. As I said, did she really need to be carrying a bag? Apparently, though, many people have discussed the purpose of that bag. It was sending signals to her staff. So, you heard any of this? Moving the bag from one arm to the other was supposedly a signal she wants to wrap up the conversation. Supposedly, if the bag was on the table during a dinner event, this meant she wanted it to end in 5 minutes. And supposedly, if the bag was on the floor, it meant come and rescue me to her lady in waiting. Which to me leaves a question, well, where did she put her bag when she was at dinner? I was at a restaurant once, where was it? I can't remember where, Dubai or somewhere. And a guy actually gave me a cushion to put my bag on, which was really quite strange. Did the cushion have a bag cushion? Did the Queen have a bag cushion? Mysterious. I also saw a psychologist say it's like a barrier between the Queen and those around her. Sense of security. Now her clothes, so we're just leaving St James's Park now. Gold stuff. Just leaving St James's Park. I want to see if we can get over here. Okay, I'll continue to chat about the Queen. We are now on the Mall. Let me just point you down here so you can get your bearings. Queen Park, St James's Park. Behind us down there is Buckingham Palace. Loudspeaker. I think he's telling people to stop taking photos and stopping in the middle of the road. I don't know if that's what he's doing. Right, and up there is Westminster Arch, which is where the Queen will be conveyed through on Sunday on her way to Windsor. So here's the Mall. Here's nice people. Good morning. And I'm going to point you in that direction first, is Buckingham Palace. See if I get a loudspeaker. And there, as I said, is Westminster Arch. And as I said, if you were watching the removal from Buckingham Palace down to Westminster, you were just seeing the Mall. And we are arriving at Marlborough Road, which is where I wanted to bring you. So you've got a welfare station there, toilets over there. Let's go this way. I love this part, absolutely love it around here. I'll show you why in a minute. Just going to finish up with the Queen's clothes. She was incredibly famous for her vibrant coats and matching hats. One of the Queen's most important duties is to be visible to crowds. Therefore, it is vital she is not missed. Hence, bright colours, serving as both a security sort of arrangement, and so the public can see her. If she's behind a crowd that is 15 people deep And by the way, if you come along here on certain times, would have been the case for the accession, then it's at least 15 people deep. So if that's the case, you want to sort of say, oh, I saw the Queen's hat go by, if you're right at the back of the queue. And apparently her most worn colour is blue. She famously said, if she turns up in beige, no one will know who she is. Also, she was considered frugal in some quarters. Her coronation dress, she re-wore 6 times, I think. So there you go. That is Friary Court and the Proclamation Gallery. Through the back of here is St James's Palace and where the accession was done. So I'm not going to, you're not allowed to trespass, I don't know if I'm allowed to film, but I just love it around here. And when I was here before, they were setting up for the changing of the guard. And they were playing music. I can't remember what the music was now. Check the video, it's good. And then they do their procession down here. Really like it round here. I was going to continue with the Queen, but I think what we'll do is talk about the palaces, because we're in palace land here. Winston Churchill is credited with saying to the Queen, it's her job to live in the flat above the shop. And that's what Buckingham Palace was to the Queen. Rather a sumptuous flat above the shop, the royal office. But she reputedly never liked it. Followers of me may have spotted, I did actually go to the palace a few weeks ago, just did the tour. It was quite interesting. It's a huge place though, massive upkeep, truly. So the Queen was actually born on Bruton Street, 17 Bruton Street in Mayfair. There's a blue plaque. Home of her maternal grandparents, the Earl and Countess of Strathmore. As I said, her parents were a prince and a lady, so they moved into this townhouse several weeks before the Queen's birth, stayed there, then they moved to White Lodge in Richmond Park for a while, then to 145 Piccadilly, 5-storey house with 25 bedrooms. Now, when the Queen married the Duke of Edinburgh, as he became at that point, in 1947, the Queen and the Prince moved into Clarence House, just through here. And they lived there until she became Queen in 1953. Well, actually, she moved out before that, I wonder. And it then became the home of Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, until her death in 2002. And the King Charles, has lived there as his official London residence, in addition to Highgrove and that place in Wales that they have that I cannot pronounce. I mean, I've got loads of Welsh heritage. I'm almost completely Welsh in my heritage, but I still can't say those words. I can only remember a few from childhood. As we approach Buckingham Palace, reputedly, as I said, not a place the Queen loved to be. Dates back to the early 1700s. I've done another video on Buckingham Palace, you can check that out. It's been the monarch's primary residence since 1837 under Queen Victoria. Reputedly, Buckingham Palace has, I'm sure the stats change wildly depending on which source you read, 775 rooms, 19 staterooms, 52 royal and guest bedrooms within that count, as well as 188 staff bedrooms, 92 offices, 78 bathrooms, as well as a post office, a cinema, a swimming pool, a doctor's surgery, and a jeweller's workshop. I guess you need it with all those, jewellery things. So we've got toilets here. I don't suppose they've got any plans on keeping those. There are toilets around Green Park just up there, but sometimes it's handy to have more toilets. Actually, then there are some in St James's Park, so that's St James's Park over there. Crossing point here over the Mall. The bill for upkeep, repair, maintenance runs to hundreds of millions, and at the moment Buckingham Palace is on a 10-year plan of refurbishment running through to at least 2025. They're having to deal with issues from asbestos, broken boilers, dangerous rubber cabling to leaky roofs and radiators and falling masonry. Right, I think I'm going to take you a little bit closer to Buckingham Palace and then we'll head up to Green Park. Please keep moving, everybody. So, a view up the Mall towards Westminster Arch again, and we are now heading towards Buckingham Palace.
Can you keep moving if you just take the pictures while you're on pavement, then stay. Thank you.
So there's Buckingham Palace. Let's
Can you keep moving,
head
please?
that way.
Take the pictures on the pavement.
Here we are. We might have to head back up here and cross again, but I thought you might like to get a little bit closer to the palace, seeing as we're celebrating the life of Her Maj, even though she didn't like the palace that much. The King Charles, King Charles, I think will be moving into the palace. Just got some more flowers here from Clarence House. He is reported to have concerns both from a sustainability perspective, environmental perspective of the palace, and the sheer cost of it. How on earth to keep it running? But I know he does see it as an important symbol of the monarchy and will continue to be, I think, his official London residence. But of course he has got Clarence House in Gloucester, Highgrove House in Gloucester, where William and Harry spent much of their time growing up. I'm just showing you the floral stuff here. Just going to show you Buckingham Palace, and then we'll probably have to head back up here. So I don't know if these people are already getting ready. I don't know actually what they're doing. Awfully long wait. So here's Buckingham Palace. Now we want to get over to Green Park, over there. But let's get you a good view of Buckingham Palace while I talk about other royal palaces and castles. There's people, lots of people want pictures here. No, it doesn't look like I can get through in that direction, so I'm going to have to turn back on myself in a sec. Let's just get you a view close up. Lots of people here taking their pictures. Let's get you through here. Here we go. Okay, let's head back through Green Park now. Not too busy. It's a bit of a crush, but it's not too busy. Looking back towards Clarence House. So Clarence House has been royal residence, many members of the royal family throughout the last 170 years, including the Queen, King Charles. So you can see it's literally like next door neighbours with Buckingham Palace. I can see lots of TV stuff over there as well. And Clarence House was built in the 1820s, 5 bedrooms, a drawing room, central fireplace, morning room filled with personal photographs, artworks, antiquities, additional principal rooms which have been used for receptions and other official entertaining over the years. So that's Clarence House, right next door to St James's Palace. Through there, it's not easy to see. You know, I know that you know it's through there. And as I said, St James's Palace, you would have seen the accession ceremony for King Charles. We can talk about St James's Palace. So through there is St James's Palace, which is the most senior royal palace in the UK. And it gives its name to the court of St James, which is actually the monarch's royal court. Did you know that? It is located in the city of Westminster, but it's all sort of played second fiddle to other palaces, and I think it's beautiful. So it's not the principal residence of the monarch, it is the ceremonial meeting place of the Accession Council. So I'm going to point you up the Mall one more time. There we go, Wellington Arch again. It's my third time.
Quickly, love. There's vehicles coming off.
There's a car coming. Hurry, hurry, hurry.
Guys, you need to stop down here.
Car was allowed down. Nice. Right, we're going to head this way towards Green Park.
Up to...
So, St James's Palace, as I said, Accession Council meets here following the death of a monarch, and later the accession of a new sovereign is proclaimed by the Garter King of Arms from the Proclamation Gallery overlooking Friary Court. They also hold family occasions at St James's Palace, most recently the christening of Prince Louis in 2018. So here we are coming round to Clarence House and St James's Palace from the other side. Just peek through there. If you want a royal experience, the St James's detachment of the Queen's Guard mounts daily guard in Friary Court. St James's Palace was actually built by Henry VIII in the 1530s on the site of a leper hospital dedicated to St James the Less. I love that name, St James the Less. And that St James's Park also would have been the grounds and hunting area and things like that. Secondary in importance to the Palace of Whitehall, to most Tudor and Stuart monarchs. As I said, it was burnt down, and St James's Palace increased in importance during the reigns of the early Hanoverian monarchs, but was then displaced by Buckingham Palace, by Queen Vic. But the Queen, she liked Windsor Castle as her weekend residence, her out of London residence, and obviously she loved Balmoral. So during the pandemic, suffering mobility issues as well, the Queen moved into Windsor Castle, where she largely stayed, seeing out the Duke of Edinburgh's last month. So here we are, just show you some pictures here. There we go. As I said, Clarence House. And St James's Palace. We were just through the other side at Marlborough. Is it Marlborough Street? Loads of palaces, aren't there? Palaces and castles. As I said, the Queen preferred to spend her time at Windsor Castle, which is the oldest and largest inhabited castle in the world, and the family home of British kings and queens for almost 1,000 years. Remains a working palace today. Queen used to use it as a private home, spending the weekend there, and as an official royal residence, undertaking certain formal duties. So here we are with the flowers being left by various people. Heath House Prep School, Paddington. So Paddington has sort of become synonymous with her, following the sketch for the Platinum Jubilee, with her eating marmalade with Paddington and drinking tea. And during Easter, the Queen, if she was at Windsor Castle, would take up official residence, hosting guests and things like that. But, as I'm sure you're aware, Balmoral Castle's where she died, and it was the place where her heart was. Loved the Highlands. A place to be more free, I think, for the royal family. And famously from Tony Blair's autobiography, he said she washed the dishes after the meal as well. And the royal family definitely summered there. They loved spending the summer there. The Queen attended the Braemar Games there. 50,000 acre estate. And apparently one of the joys was it allowed everyone to have their private abode. King Charles loved for Burke Hall, Queen Elizabeth and the Prince Philip spending time in Craig Own Lodge. Here we are, some more flowers. So I'm going to finish up in a sec. Just going to read you out some more things about the Queen. Things that you might know, not know. We all know that Balmoral is where her heart truly lay. And her true happiness came from her love of animals, dogs and corgis especially, and horses. And she was a pigeon fancier. I think she owned 200 pigeons. So the Queen particularly loved her beloved corgis. Her first corgi was Susan. She was given Susan in 1944 as a princess. And Susan actually, she used as a breeding dog. And most of her corgis since then were bred from Susan. And when she married Prince Philip, did you know when she married Prince Philip in 1947, she sneaked Susan along in the carriage to Westminster Abbey under blankets. And Susan joined them in their honeymoon in Balmoral. I think those corgis had a bit of a mixed reputation in terms of behaviour, lots of stories, biting, fighting, growling. One article described them as sort of a moving carpet tumbling ahead of the Queen through the palace and making a mess everywhere. Yeah, that sort of mess. Corgi Holly had a starring role during the sketch for the 2012 London Olympic opening ceremony, where she walked alongside the Queen to meet James Bond, played by Daniel Craig. So we're in Green Park, as I mentioned, just looking at the floral stuff. Did you know the Queen actually invented a new breed of dog called a Dorgie? So Princess Margaret's Dachshund mated with the Queen's Corgi to create what they called a Dorgie. So yep, they created a Dorgie. Apparently the Queen was asked, well, how do they do it, you know, mechanically? What with the size difference and all. And she said, oh, we give them a little brick. She also loved horses. Began at the age of 4 when she received her first pony, a Shetlands named Peggy. She bred horses, had about 25 horses training at the Royal Studs every season. Regularly rode at Windsor, Sandringham, Balmoral. And from what I can work out, was definitely riding up until the age of 95, if not 96. She had to stop under doctor's orders, and due to this discomfort. But I think it's very reluctantly. There were even some reports she was riding a few months ago. She was often given animals as gifts, actually, and she donated most of them to London Zoo if she couldn't sort of leave them behind. Gifts have included a sloth, two jaguars, giant tortoises, cockatoos, a Nile crocodile, Arctic fox, cassowary, beavers, a really long list. She did receive a black mare named Burmese, which was given to her by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Hello, Canadians. And she rode Burmese at the Trooping of the Colour for 18 consecutive years, between 1969 and 1986. And so, Trooping the Colour, by the way, is sort of on the official Queen's birthday. So, you know, she's got the real birthday in April and the official one in June. Trooping of the Colour was sort of a military thing, but also a chance for the royals to come out in their finery. I think they sort of started it in the 1800s or something. And June was a much better month. Better weather and all. So it seems to me they're directing people who want to make a floral tribute and telling them quite where they have to put things, do things and what have you. So as we finish up in Green Park and finish up this walk in memory of the Queen, let's just go through a few other things that you might not know. Let's go. Princess Elizabeth made her first radio broadcast in October 1940 during the Second World War. In her lifetime, she sent around 50,000 Christmas cards. And sticking with the number 50,000, at Buckingham Palace, she hosted over 50,000 people per year at receptions, banquets, lunches, dinners, and garden parties. She was the only person in the UK allowed to drive without a licence and travelled without a passport. And that's because UK licences and passports are issued in her name. The rest of the royals do have to travel with passports. You can't quite see her at security check, can you? Passport control. And apparently she learnt to drive when driving a truck during the Second World War as part of the women's branch of the British Army, the Women's Auxiliary Territorial Service. And I think there was an interview with former racing driver Jackie Stewart. He said she was actually a very good driver. The Queen technically owns all of the unmarked swans in the UK. According to laws, let's turn this way, shall we? According to laws set forth over 8 centuries ago, the reigning monarch holds the right to claim ownership over all unmarked mute swans swimming in open waters. And they do swan upping every year. 800 years they've been doing swan upping, where they sort of go along the Thames on a Thames skiff, counting any mute swan that they find, accompanied by a family of cygnets. When they find such a thing, they yell. What do they yell? All up. They holler all up when they find a swan with their cygnets. She's been on the Tube, first time in May 1939. Visited the Tube again in 1969 when they opened the Victoria line. But I just can't imagine her with an Oyster card somehow. Invented the Royal Walkabout, I've mentioned it before. During a royal tour of Australia and New Zealand with Philip and Princess Anne in 1970, she bucked centuries of royal tradition, where she took a casual stroll to greet crowds of people in person, rather than wave to them from a protected distance. Under her reign, the cameras, as I've said previously, were allowed in, starting with that royal documentary in 1969. And she's a proper techie. She first sent an email in 1976. On March the 26th, 1976, the Queen visited the Royal Signals and Radar Establishment, Telecommunications Research Centre in Melbourne, and using ARPANET, the computer network that eventually morphed into the current internet, she became the first royal to send an email. And she also published her first Instagram post in 2019. In her first Instagram post, she actually shared a letter written to her great-great-grandfather, Prince Albert, in 1843 from Charles Babbage. That's a very pretty dog. Charles Babbage, considered by many to be the father of the modern computer. So she was all tech as well as well dressed, with great handbags, love of animals and the outdoors. And as we approach Green Park Station, I will bring this walk to an end. I really do hope you've enjoyed hearing about the Queen and her life and getting a feel for the experience of being around London, Westminster, Buckingham Palace, the Mall during this time of mourning and celebration of her life. I will see you next time. Bye bye.